Just before her passing, Nichelle Nichols revealed a truth about Star Trek that shocked the world. The legendary actress, who broke barriers as Lieutenant Uhura, finally spoke about what really happened behind the scenes of the iconic series. From hidden tensions to unexpected challenges, her confession shed light on struggles fans never knew existed. Decades later, Nichols' revelations change how we remember not just the show, but her incredible legacy. First, when Nichelle Nichols walked into her audition for Star Trek, she had little idea that she was about to help redefine the landscape of American television and popular culture. She recalled that she was asked to read for the communications officer role, a position that, at that point, was not yet fully defined. The series producers were still experimenting with the concept of the character, uncertain about how a woman of color would fit into the vision of a futuristic starship crew. Nichols remembered being instructed to perform a segment of the script, as if she were auditioning for a female Spock type of role, logically sharp, emotionally reserved, and intellectually formidable. This description alone hints at the ambiguity of the early creative process. The production team had not yet determined whether the character would be a background figure or a central, influential member of the Enterprise crew. Nichols's audition experience underscores the tentative steps television was taking toward inclusion. At the time, the late 1960s were a period of immense social upheaval in the United States. The civil rights movement was reshaping the national conversation about race, equality, and representation, yet television often lagged behind these societal changes. Roles for African American women were limited and stereotyped, typically confined to domestic work or secondary characters. For Nichols, the audition was not just about showcasing her talent, it was also an unspoken test of whether mainstream television was ready to embrace a black actress in a role that was not subservient or defined by her race. The idea of a female Spock embodied a radical departure from prevailing television norms. The character was envisioned as intelligent, competent, and authoritative, capable of holding her own among the starship's crew of predominantly white men. The ambiguity surrounding the role reflects a broader truth about the creative development of Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry, the show's creator, had a vision for a progressive, inclusive future. But that vision was still crystallizing when Nichols first entered the audition room. Nichols' performance, professionalism, and on-screen presence ultimately helped shape what the character of Lieutenant Uhura would become. Initially a minor supporting role, Uhura evolved into one of the most iconic characters in television history, a symbol of hope, intelligence, and equality. Nichols's portrayal demonstrated that a character of color could occupy a position of authority and respect without being relegated to stereotypical or background roles, a radical and inspiring concept for the era. Nichols's reflections on her audition also highlight the organic evolution of the character. The initial concept of a female Spock may have emphasized logic and composure, but Nichols brought warmth, charisma, and humanity to Uhura that transcended the initial template. Her performance transformed Uhura from a simple archetype into a multi-dimensional character capable of demonstrating technical skill, courage, and emotional depth. Over time, the role expanded in significance, becoming a key component of the Star Trek universe and a source of inspiration for generations of fans, particularly young women and people of color. Figures like Dr. Mae Jemison, the first black woman astronaut, famously cited Nichols as a role model, attributing their own career choices in part to the trail Nichols blazed on screen. Second, by the end of the first season of Star Trek, Nichelle Nichols found herself wrestling with uncertainty. Despite the historic nature of her role as Lieutenant Uhura, the communications officer aboard the Starship Enterprise, Nichols began to feel that her character had grown stagnant. In her interviews, she described the early episodes as offering limited opportunities to showcase Uhura's intelligence, skill, or depth. The scripts often relegated her to brief lines or background duties, and Nichols, an accomplished actress and singer, wondered if the role would ever allow her to explore the full range of her talents. The frustration was compounded by the broader context of 1960s television. Opportunities for black actresses were scarce, and even trailblazing roles risked becoming pigeonholed or underdeveloped. By some accounts, she seriously considered leaving the series at the conclusion of Season 1 or the beginning of Season 2. This turning point in Nichols' career, however, came in an unexpected and profoundly inspiring way. During a public event, Nichols was introduced to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the towering civil rights leader who had become an emblem of progress, justice, and equality in the United States. According to Nichols, King took the time to speak with her privately and delivered words that would change her mind about leaving the show. He told her, essentially, that she could not abandon the role because Lieutenant Uhura represented something far greater than any single actress could. As Nichols recounted, King's words conveyed a message along the lines of, "You cannot do that. For the first time, we are being seen as we should be seen." That brief exchange crystallized the significance of Uhura's presence on television. Nichols realized that her character was not just a fictional officer on a futuristic spaceship. She had become a symbol of representation for African Americans, and by extension, for all marginalized communities. To Dr. King and countless others, seeing a black woman in a position of authority and competence on a national television show was revolutionary. The imagery of Uhura at the communications console, issuing commands, interacting confidently with her fellow crew members, and participating in critical missions offered a vision of equality and possibility rarely depicted in mainstream media. King's words made Nichols aware that her work carried cultural weight far beyond the confines of the Enterprise set. This encounter has since become one of the most frequently cited behind-the-scenes stories in the history of Star Trek. It highlights not only Nichols's personal career decision, but also the intersection of popular culture and the civil rights movement. While Star Trek was a science fiction show set in the 23rd century, it functioned as a progressive allegory for contemporary society. Gene Roddenberry's vision of a multiracial, cooperative, and egalitarian crew had the potential to challenge entrenched social norms. Nichols's decision to stay ensured that the series could continue to embody this ideal. Third, on November 22, 1968, Star Trek aired one of its most discussed and culturally significant episodes, Plato's Stepchildren. Among the many memorable elements of the episode was a moment that would spark debate, fascination, and historical significance for decades to come. Lieutenant Uhura, played by Nichelle Nichols, shared a kiss with Captain James T. Kirk, portrayed by William Shatner. At first glance, it might appear as just another dramatic plot device. The characters were under the influence of telekinetic powers wielded by the episode's antagonists, forcing them to act against their will. Yet the kiss carried implications far beyond the fictional universe of the Enterprise, both in terms of representation on television and in the broader context of American society. For years, a cloud of uncertainty and myth surrounded the kiss. Many fans and historians debated whether the lips of Uhura and Kirk actually touched, whether the scene was staged in a way that obscured the physical contact, or whether multiple takes were involved to accommodate perceived sensitivities at the time. This ambiguity was fueled by the social and racial climate of the late 1960s. Interracial intimacy on American television was virtually unprecedented, and network executives were acutely aware of potential backlash. In 1967, just a year before the episode aired, the United States had passed landmark civil rights legislation, but racial tensions remained high. Any depiction of a black woman and a white man sharing a romantic or sexual gesture could provoke strong reactions from certain audiences, especially in more conservative regions of the country. Nichelle Nichols, however, has clarified the details in her autobiography and numerous interviews. According to her own account, the kiss was indeed real. The actor's lips did touch. Nichols explained that the production deliberately flubbed several takes, in which the actor's lips did not make contact, ensuring that the final take, in which the kiss actually occurred, would be used in the broadcast. This confirms that the scene was not a mere illusion or a cautious compromise by the producers. It was an intentional, carefully executed moment. Nichols's willingness to participate in the real kiss underscores both her professionalism and her awareness of the larger significance of her actions. The scene was not only a key dramatic moment in the episode, but also a bold statement in the history of television representation. The kiss between Uhura and Kirk is often celebrated as one of the first televised interracial kisses in American network television history. While there are debates about other televised moments that may have preceded it, such as brief instances on soap operas or variety shows, the Star Trek kiss stood out for its prominence, narrative significance, and lasting cultural impact. It was not a fleeting glimpse, but a central plot point, integral to the story being told. That Nichols and Shatner executed it with professionalism and intentionality gave the moment authenticity and gravitas, ensuring that it resonated with audiences at the time and with generations of viewers afterward. Moreover, the episode illustrates the tension between creative vision and network concerns. Gene Roddenberry's progressive vision for Star Trek had consistently pushed boundaries, imagining a future in which diversity, equality, and cooperation across races were normalized. Yet executing that vision required careful navigation of the realities of 1960s television. By ultimately using the real kiss take, the production team demonstrated both courage and commitment to authenticity. It was a deliberate choice to honor the narrative, respect the actors, and signal a progressive message to viewers. Last, in 1994, Nichelle Nichols published her autobiography, Beyond Uhura, Star Trek, and Other Memories, offering a deeply personal and revelatory account of her life and career, particularly her groundbreaking work on Star Trek. Within its pages, Nichols revisited key moments that shaped both her trajectory as an actress and the cultural impact of the character Lieutenant Uhura. She recounted the uncertainty of her initial audition, the formative experience of being asked to read for a female Spock-type role, and the way she brought the character to life in a manner that would ultimately transcend the original vision. Nichols's reflections reveal how the role of Uhura, which began as a tentative experiment in inclusion, evolved into a symbol of empowerment, intelligence, and representation, an evolution shaped as much by her own interpretation as by the creative intentions of the show's producers. Nichols also revisited the period during which she contemplated leaving the series. By the end of the first season, or in the early days of the second, she felt constrained by the limited development of her character. In interviews and in her book, she described the frustration of repeatedly portraying a role that offered minimal lines and few opportunities for meaningful character work. It was during this time of doubt that she encountered Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an encounter she has famously recounted. King's words, urging her to remain on the show because, for the first time, African Americans were being seen as we should be seen, had a profound and lasting impact on Nichols. She realized that her presence on the Enterprise set was far more consequential than she had initially appreciated. Her decision to stay, influenced by King's encouragement, underscored the intersection between popular culture and civil rights, and illuminated how television could serve as a vehicle for social change. Nichols' autobiography also addresses another moment that has become iconic in television history: the Plato's Stepchildren episode of Season 3, in which Uhura shares a kiss with Captain Kirk. Nichols clarified that the kiss was real, confirming that the actors' lips did indeed touch and that the takes where they did not were deliberately flubbed so the genuine version could be used. Her account dispels years of rumor and speculation, affirming that the moment was both intentional and meaningful. Despite the cultural sensitivity surrounding interracial displays of affection on American television in the late 1960s, through her explanation, Nichols highlighted the courage of both the cast and the production team, who navigated network apprehensions and societal norms to deliver a moment of authenticity that continues to resonate as a milestone in television history. Over the years following the publication of Beyond Uhura, Nichols gradually shared additional details in interviews and public appearances, further illuminating her experience on the Star Trek set. She reflected on the subtle dynamics behind the cameras, the careful consideration required to develop a character that was at once groundbreaking and respectful to societal sensibilities, and the ways in which her role had inspired real-world change. Each new revelation served to contextualize the importance of her work, emphasizing that her contributions went beyond acting. She had become a trailblazer for representation, visibility, and opportunity in an era when such portrayals were rare and often controversial. Nichols' confirmations and reflections over the years have been essential in setting the record straight about the production dynamics of Star Trek, the evolving role of Uhura, and her own place in television history. They underscore that what may have initially seemed like a minor supporting role carried extraordinary cultural weight, influencing perceptions, breaking barriers, and inspiring future generations. Through her autobiography and subsequent interviews, Nichols provided a detailed, nuanced understanding of how her experiences, from auditioning and nearly leaving the show, to being inspired by Martin Luther King Jr., to filming the historic Kiss, intersected to create a legacy that extends far beyond the screen. What do you think about what Nichelle Nichols revealed? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.